Greetings ladies and gents, and welcome to this video for Fork This Life, written by Jinxes 2011. This video contains chapter 32, and as always I hope that you enjoy, and if you do, please consider forking subscribing. Chapter 32, Warping Through the Spoon-Time Continuum. With Drea having his meal, the conversation momentarily ceased. I finally get a chance to look around at the place. This house is, less than a house and more like a well-built hut. It consists of nothing more than a single room furnished with a table, a couple chairs, a bed, a bookshelf. Here's hoping that I get an opportunity to peruse its contents extensively. And a cupboard. Just outside the singular window is a small pile of assorted implements. Trident, pitchfork, 3 blades, swords, and a singular tuning fork. Everything in the pile could, if one squints with a bit, keeps very open mind, be defined as a fork. Other than that, there is a sturdy door, padlocked shut, some crystals embedded in the floor, and an arch up against one of the walls. "Is that a portal?" I asked, starting up a telepathic link. "What?" Jaya jumps out of his chair in shock. "Oh, could you give me a bit of warning next time? Your voice just comes out of nowhere. It's a bit creepy." "Sorry," I apologize. "I suppose it would be quite startling. How about this? If I fly up in front of you when I want to talk, is that all right?" He nods. "Okay. Now what was you asking again?" "Is that a portal on the wall, I asked again. He looks over. "That's right. It's inactive, though. I deactivate it for the trip across. First rule of portals, don't put a portal through a portal. Someone always ends up dead. Usually you." "That sounds fun. Why? What happens?" "Well, portals are just basically a carefully managed twist in the fabric of space," Drader explained after a moment. "Put one through another, and it becomes a horribly complicated and messy. Space breaks. Everything around you break. Poof." "Sounds deadly," I say lightly, immediately adding a portalception to my list of things to never do. "So where does it go?" "Arbidak," he says, a name that sounds some foreign board game, or perhaps a foreign suite. "The center of all magical learning and my home world." "Oh, I suppose that would be a very good place to learn magic?" I asked with interest. "Yes, the best," he states. There is a moment of silence. "Oh, you meant you wanted to learn magic there," he finally realizes. "Well, if you have enough talent, or you might be able to get a scholarship." "I am probably talented, I don't know. Does having a high intelligence and wisdom stats help?" I ask questioningly. "Yep," Drea replies, "but that's beside the point. First things first, I'm getting out of hell. Anything else can come after that." "Right, sounds good," I agreed. "So how long will it take to get back to enough mana for that?" I ask. Drea scratches his head, scooping another handful of nuts in his mouth. "Hard to say, I'm assuming that I need to keep summoning food and water." 2 months? 2 months! I exclaim in disbelief. "It only takes me over 3 hours to fill up my mana pool from empty, and that's with the foreign mana debuff nearly halving it." "Well, I put all my stats into intelligence, so of course it's going to take a while." Drea folds his furry arms. "And I have to fill up all the mana crystals, even my tiny stats. It's impossible to transport a whole house with mana pool alone." "You transport the entire house between worlds?" I gasp. He nods. "Of course. I don't know how to build a house, so what else am I going to do? Pitch a tent?" He laughs. "I am not an animal." I refrain from mentioning that he looks exactly like a giant animal. "Wait, I forgot." Drea hits his forehead lightly with his palm. "I'll just adjust the amount of mana going into the formation to account for the extra person going through. Make that 2 months and a few days." "Can I fill up the mana crystals for you?" I ask. "That would speed this up." "No, having someone else's mana in the formation would make it difficult to control," Jaya replies. "It's best not to risk it." I sigh in resignation. "So, what do we do in the meantime?" "Talk, I suppose. I'll look through my spellbooks, see if there's anything that can help you. Maybe explore a little," he muses. "In other words, more sitting around, doing nothing for me." Fork. Drea flips onto the last page of this last spellbook and the last shelf of his bookshelf. Snapping the book shut a moment later, it is taking him a few days to read through them all, and which each one my hope has dwindled slightly. Looks like you're out of luck this time, Drea says. I do have one spell that could be modified to suit your purposes, but it's just too advanced. To learn it, I'd have to go through and teach you exactly several dozen other things first. And with you not being able to see writing, I don't think that I'd be able to, even if I wanted to. Don't worry about it, I say, resigned. Still, thanks for taking the time to look through all the books. It was about time I read back through them anyway, he replies, waving it off. Now it's about time I do some exploring on this godforsaken place. Mind if I come with you? I ask, happy to do something other than sitting around. Sure, he replies, slipping gloves on his paws, both front and hind. From what I can see, his paws are somewhat more developed than an ordinary squirrel's with fully opposable thumbs, but still retaining the pads and claws. Opening the door, Dreyer steps outside and winces slightly. The ground is hot, he exclaims, as I fly through the open door. Will you be all right? I ask. I'll be fine, he says, shifting slightly from paw to paw to get used to the temperature. Not nearly as bad as the time I was in the Ignis, the elemental world of fire. I paused at that. How on earth did you survive a world of fire? You don't, normally, he replies. I was lucky enough to come across some friendly fire elementals who were willing to siphon off the heat around my house until I managed to get out of there. Unfortunately, they weren't able to siphon off all the heat, and I had to have extensive repairs done in this world after, he says wryly, before remarking, Gosh, it really is dark, isn't it? I can't tell. Without living beings to use as reference, I am completely unable to tell the time of day. If it's night, maybe we should wait until morning, I suggest. According to my research, hell doesn't have a day, just a night and a dark. Dreyer explains. The moon, there it is. The moon provides a little bit of light. After it goes beyond the horizon, there's not even that, just pure darkness. The more I learn about this place, the more I want to leave, I groan. I had seen demons using the terms before, but I thought dark and night were referring to the same thing. Apparently not. Dreyer gets down on all fours and starts dashing across the ground at a decent pace, with me following closely behind. So you know this bit about this place? I asked, curious. A bit Ah! Dreyer plows into a boulder. Ow. I try to research places that I could end up in, especially the bad ones. I knew I would end up here eventually, he says, a thin trail of blood seeping from his head. You all right? I ask, slightly concerned. He waves a paw. Fine. Just try not to distract me when I'm running, okay? All right. I'm keeping up telepathically between us so that we can talk at any time. Of course, that means some extra drain on my side, given that I'm also using telekinesis to fly. But since the distance between us is fairly small, it still isn't putting my consumption over my regeneration. The landscape around us isn't much different from what it was before Drea summoned me. Bleak, barren, and sheltering minimal life. Drea pads in a steady, gradually expanding circles around the house, familiarizing himself with the area. As I follow him around, getting a bit of exercise, so to speak, I notice some people appearing on the edge of my vision. To be more specific, it's a few demons chasing after what looks like a kid. The kid looks like an elf, and he looks to have been in terrible shape, dressed in little more than torn rags and sporting several large wounds. Noticing that they're heading roughly towards the house, I warn Drea. Hey, Drea, can you fight? We have demons incoming. Of course I can. Where are they coming from? Drea replies, standing up and looking around cautiously. Coming towards the house from a bit to your right, about 1.5 kilometers away, I estimate. Chasing a child as well. A child? Those beasts! Drea says angrily, running off towards them. Well, I'm honestly skeptical that the kid is much better than the demons after all I've seen so far in hell. But I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. We reach within a stone's throw of them just in time to witness them plunging a spear into the boy's back. No! Drea shouts. Incredibly, the boy doesn't fall, just keeps on running, with the spear still tearing his flesh asunder under the growing visage of the demon holding it. "Hey, for a frick! Come to help your friend," he shouts, noticing us. "Come over here so I can make a for..." The demon collapses forward, an arrow protruding from the back of his head. Drea raises a hand, plucking the arrow from thin air and setting it into a string on the bow that appeared only moments earlier. Drawing back the string, Drea releases the arrow and jumps forward into a tiny portal that emerges in front of him. The portal's twin appears over the head of the two remaining demons, who has turned around to see who shot the first one. He's soon sporting a stylish new headpiece. Seeing the demise of his accomplices, the last demon turns and runs. But honestly, what use is there in running when your opponent is a space wizard? A third arrow quickly finds its mark and the final demon collapses into the ground. Tossing the bow aside, Drea rushes towards the boy, who collapsed to the ground upon witnessing the death of his pursuers. Stooping down beside him, there is a brief glimmer of light above Drea's hand before the sparks into nothingness. "I don't have enough mana to summon potions. Can you do something?" he asks, panicking at the sight of the boy spilling blood and numerous wounds. "Probably not, but I can take a look." I look closer at the boy and both exterior and interior of the body, inspecting his bones and organs. What's left of them? "Impossible! This should be impossible!" I exclaim in disbelief. "What's wrong?" Drea asks with his dread. "What's wrong? His spine is broken in 3 separate places, his legs in 7, his lungs are holier than Swiss cheese, and his heart is actually skish-kebabbed with the spear earlier." I report, unable to believe my eyes. Not that I have any. Drea sighs. "He's dead, then. If I had a head, I would be shaking it." "That's what's so impossible. He's still alive." "That's right, he's alive. His lungs are still pumping and his heart still beating, even though they don't seem to be doing anything. They just keep going on without showing any indication of stopping." "What?" Drea gasps. "But how?" "Beats me," I admit helplessly, "but I think it's best not to touch him. Might disrupt whatever it is keeping him alive." "I think that's best," Drea agrees. "But we can't just leave him here." "There's nothing we can do. I don't see that we have much of a choice," I reply. Drea looks about to argue, but then when the boy opens his eyes, glances over to the big tall fur in front of him, the boy's eyebrows narrowly slightly, but he says nothing and just gets up off the ground, looks around unnatural and painful. His bones are broken, but are acting as if they aren't, keeping the alignment and everything. That probably means they'll heal up better, right? I think I remember something along those lines. Ignoring Drea, he walks over to the corpses of the demons and picks up a spear. Without so much as a glance at us, he starts walking away. I can see him muttering under his breath. "Kill them. I have to find a way to kill them." The kid has problems. Well, I think that's that. How about we go back to your house now? "That sounds good," Drea sighs. "Remind me how long it'll take again?" I ask, just starting traveling back. "I just used all my mana, so we're back to the beginning." 3 days pass as slowly as ever. I spend my time, as per usual, slowly increasing the proficiency and getting some more flying experience. Occasionally I perform my duties as the only fork in the house. Drea spends this time reading through his tomes, sleeping or eating. Every now and again he infuses mana into one of the crystals in the floor, making them glow ever brighter in my sight. The days turn into weeks, and a lone demon happens to spot the house. Not wanting to stay in hell any longer than I have to, I decide to face him myself. With a quick combination of my natural forky stealth, a key blast and a magic edge, and a power stab, I fork him up real good. Weeks turn into months, and the number on the age section of my status ticks from 11 to 12. A whole year. I never expected to have my first birthday in hell. It's quite dreary, one might even go so far as to call it hellish. I think I'll make a goal to have my second birthday anywhere but hell. Actually, make that any birthday. Eventually, my age ticks to 13 months, with the day of departure drawing near. I check over my skills, satisfied that my constant training has paid off. Power Stab has advanced to advanced, decreasing the cooldown from 4 minutes and increasing the multiplier to 1.2 times. Not exactly a startling increase, but every bit counts. Still, physical attacks are not my preferred course of action, so, with any luck, I won't have significant use for this in the future. Magic Edge has reached advanced, bringing with it greater control of my skill. I mean, using all my mana on it is powerful, but I really don't want to use all my mana on something like that. Now, for the more interesting and useful ones. Mana control has increased to advanced. I don't need to explain that, do I? For manipulation, Self has finally reached expert, meaning that I can transform quicker and more smoothly than ever, and at a lower cost. Heck, I can actually form an edge with some sharpness to it now, or make my tines pointy. The last, but most probably the greatest of all of these is meditation. It has crossed the threshold of master proficiency, bringing with it a great gains. Well, the increase isn't as large from basic to advanced, but it's still significant. My mana and psi regeneration are now multiplied by 3, while my ki generation is multiplied by 25. What's more is that the meditation state now has a calming effect and makes me slightly more resistant to mind-affecting or altering effects. With that and the old structured sanity trait, my mind should be pretty well protected. On top of all of that, my ki pool is now completely full. The last few days seem to crawl by at a snail's pace, my anticipation of finally leaving this place and making the hours drag on endlessly. But finally, the last mana crystal gains the same bright glow as the others. Andrea says that the formation is ready. Now I just need to fill up my own mana pool again, and we're good to go. Andrea says with satisfaction when I ask him when he'll be starting to spell up. You mean there's still another few days? A few long days later. All right, let's get out of here. Dreyer exclaims, "Oh, and please don't interrupt me. That could be bad." I sever the telepathic link just to be sure. Sitting down in the corner of the floor, Dreyer lays his paws onto the center of the formation. A slight amount of mana slips from his body into the formation, radiating through lines that were barely visible before. When those faint threads of mana reach the glowing mana crystals, the formation suddenly floods with light, the threads of mana quickly turning into the thickness of ropes. A moment later, a portal appears just below the house. Then, in a bizarre turn of events, the house begins to start sinking. I almost contact Dreyer in a panic, but decide to trust that everything is happening as it's supposed to be. His expression doesn't even seem to have... I can't read his expression, actually. Dreyer and the furniture in the house start sinking as well. To me, who can't see beyond the portal, it appears as if Dreyer is just half a giant squirrel sticking out of a swirling mass of mana in the portal. After a few moments, the table I am on slips below the surface of the portal, taking me with it. As it does, the system window appears, but I ignore it for now. While on the other side, I can see what actually is happening. The house, and by extension us, is on flat ground, and we are not sinking into it, thank God. I should really find out more about the gods, who they are, what they do, that sort of thing. It's probably important. Anyway, back to the matters at hand. The portal on this side is above us and slowly ascending, with more and more of the house being revealed as it goes. After another 10 seconds or so, the portal rises over the peak of the house, stops, and shrinks quickly into nothingness. Dreyer stands up and looks around. All right, everything seems to have come through fine. Gerald, it's done, you can talk again. That was a unique experience. I re-establish a telepathic connection between us. What world are we in now? Now, let's have a look, shall we? Dreyer opens the door and steps out. Hey, Forest, now this is my type of world. Now this is a strange type of world. There's the forest which extends beyond the limits of my vision, and that's fine. It's just a big forest. Right? Wrong. The trees are moving. Not all of them, and not fast, but the trees are moving around. Actually, there seems to be a notable exception. The trees around us aren't moving at all. Some of the trees are moving, I note to Dryer, just outside of the ring of trees. Don't suppose you know anything about them. He peers around, but is unable to see anything. Do they have trunk-like legs? Not really. They more crawl through the ground with their roots, I reply, taking another look at one of them. No clue then. Drea shrugged. Still, we don't seem to have anything attacking us just yet, so it's already better landing than some of the other times. Maybe I should just mass-produce that book I'm planning to write. Hand it to schools or something. Drea steps back inside and the rest for a while after transporting us across worlds. He tells me it's a strenuous ordeal. Since nothing is happening, I take a look out the window that I missed. You are entering the world without a system. Help function will be limited. Experience values and skill proficiencies will not update until you re-enter the system. You will still be able to view your status, but any changes to your abilities may cause the values to display to be incorrect. It is recommended that you do not spend any available stat points. I do a double take. I am outside the system just by moving to another world. I suppose it does make sense that it doesn't exist everywhere. It didn't exist on Earth after all. Just to be sure, I asked Drader about it. This world is outside the system. Huh? Yeah, it is, he replies absently. It's pretty rare, but there are a few worlds without it. Not sure why. It can be annoying with numbers in your status getting mixed up so easily. I've learned to live without it. Interesting. The days passes without incident, despite Dreya's jinxing us earlier. Unknown's POV. I watched the foreigners that night. The squirrel beastman. I haven't seen one in quite a while. Simply sleeps. The small one does not, seeming content to watch the train through the night. He's quite unusual, even to me. He has the form of a fork, and yet the spirit of a human. The unusual combination reminds me of an old friend, one I have not seen since, shortly after the darkness, but that was my choice. Stay here, watch over my people, so that the history never repeats itself. However long it takes. The night passes without incident, but they are not so fortunate in the morning. One of my people, riding an ash that is young and capricious enough to still be roaming, happens to come close enough to the foreigners that the ash freezes up. Not having had visitors for a long time, my people have forgotten the tree's ancient instincts upon encountering people that they don't know. Pretend to be a normal tree, lest they be felled by the axe or fire. So, it is understandable that she is perplexed about the ash suddenly stopping. Descending from amongst its branches, she strikes off into the forest, asking the forest to guide her path. Of course, the trees around her are playing possum, so none of them are able to answer her request, and she ends up walking straight towards the house. She is shocked by its appearance, and when she becomes close enough to see what it is made of, horrified. Her scream startles the beastman, who had just left his house to greet her. His attempts to calm her down are met with no success, and it quickly becomes obvious that it will come to blows if nothing is done. Sighing, I step out of the forest and place my hand on her shoulder. Calm yourself. I remove my hand again as she whirls around, the anger in her eyes quickly changing to awe and respect. My lord, but this thing, it's made of... She trails off, her voice quickly regaining the angry edge. Looking to the beastman, I say, I apologize for her behavior. For so long have my people known only the forest that they have forgotten that there were once trees without walls or intelligence, and still are in other worlds. No harm done, he replies amiably. I'm Drea, and you two are... I turn back towards the now considerably calmer woman. Remain nearby while I stay here to prevent any further misunderstandings, and teach them the way of the forest. Yes, my lord, she bows. Shaking my head softly, I step back into the forest. POV, Gerald. If he hadn't come along, I don't know what would have happened. Drea sighs with relief, but he was a tad rude. Who? I reply, confused by the whole situation. Drea tilts his head. The satire man that came in and calmed down the satire woman. Didn't you see them? No, I reply slowly. No, I didn't. Great. We have another invisible man. End of chapter. And that, my friends, is the end of the video. I hope that you enjoyed. If you did, please consider supporting the author from the links down below. And if you'd like to support this channel, there are numerous ways listed down below. The easiest of which would be to share this channel, subscribe, like and comment, and all the other stuff that Google wants us to push. But anyways, until the next video, I hope that you all have a good one, and I'll see you then. Cheers.